Well, let's get started. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning for our second installment of our Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber Health and Wellness series. I'm very excited to introduce Gail Patricolo, who's going to be kind of serving as moderator this morning. Gail served for 8 years on the board of directors of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber and also on the executive committee. She's recently retired from Beaumont Health, where she was the director of integrative medicine for the health system. The program gained national attention under Gail's guidance, and she's also a stress reduction expert and guided meditation specialist, and has opened her own business called Health Guided, where she brings people to peace. So Gail, thank you so much for participating this morning, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks everybody for coming out on such a sort of a chilly day. I'm excited about this particular presentation. I think we all can identify with it, supporting employee health and wellness during tough times. Well, you might oversee a company of 1,000 people or 50 people, or maybe you're just a sole proprietor, just you. But every one of us, I think, has discovered this is extremely stressful times for those of us in our careers. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We have two really special speakers. I've had the opportunity to chat with them for about an hour to hear their views on this topic. So I'm going to jump right in and introduce them. First, I want to introduce Dr. Hallie Armstrong. She is a naturopathic doctor, and she is the lead ND for integrative medicine at Beaumont Health. She and her colleagues are the only naturopathic doctors that are actually practicing in a hospital system in the state of Michigan. So we're very lucky to have her here in Metro Detroit. She believes it's vital to treat the whole person, and she's dedicated to providing patients with a team-based approach to wellness, so integrating traditional medicine along with integrative medicine. She serves as co-facilitator of the Faculty Scholars Program at Beaumont Health, which is a wonderful program offering almost 70 CMEs to physicians and other healthcare professionals. She's a professor at the William Beaumont School of Medicine at Oakland University, and she's worked with many diverse populations to treat patients with physical illness, emotional issues that they're dealing with. And she focuses on women's health, disorders of the adrenal glands, stress reduction, and digestive issues. And she was recipient of the Oakland County's prestigious Elite 40 Under 40 Award. So thank you, Dr. Armstrong. And then also thrilled to introduce Kristin Baker. She's vice president of a company called HR Advantage Advisory. And she has as well an unbelievable resume of over 20 years of progressive human resource experience, really in all facets of HR, including organizational development, design, employee labor relations, change management, mergers and acquisitions, training, strategic planning, leadership development, compensation, employee engagement, and team building. I'm out of breath with all of her great skills and expertise. She provides leadership and support to clients, and the thing that we'll talk about, to really any size of organization, whether you're a huge organization or if you're just a smaller one. And I think that's really perfect for our chamber audience. And she works across industries. Prior to joining HR Advantage Advisory, she held the role of Vice President, Global Human Resources for Percepta. And as a member of the senior executive team, she was responsible for leading the HR function to a $100 million, 800 employee organization, which operates in 14 countries. Woo, I'm exhausted just reading all this, Kristin. She's held many senior HR leadership roles for Fortune 500 companies. So thank you both for joining us today and giving us your wisdom. So the chat is open. Please feel free, if you have questions, to send them through. I'll monitor them. And if the ladies haven't answered your question during the presentation, we're going to have time at the end to talk about people's questions. And also, I'm going to direct my questions to specific speakers, but of course, both Hallie and Kristin can jump in and chime in if there's something else that they'd like to offer. But first, I'd like to address this to Kristin. So can you help guide us on how does a business really establish expectations and policies about people working from home? I mean, we're very aware that businesses are, rather you can't go into your business to work, you're working from home, you have kids there that you're trying to get on their own internet platforms for schoolwork. So this is a very unique time for employers. So what kinds of things do you recommend, Kristin, to the organizations that you help?
Thank you, Gail. One of the main things that I think is changing with the remote working is how managers and employers manage their employees. To use a cliche, these are unprecedented times. And so people are doing the best that they can with whatever distractions or pressures they have at home. But I really think, and what excites me is I have clients that need to see you every day. They want, I call it butts and seats, right? If you're there from 8 to 5, you're working hard, maybe not. And now when you're home, there's a concern of, is this person really working? What are they doing? And we have employers that are just constantly following up with employees. But this is an opportunity to manage a little differently. Manage by results and achievements versus actually seeing that person every day from 8 to 5. We also need to be a little more flexible with our employees. Typically, our teleworking policies will say that this is not to a substitute for childcare or for caring for someone else in the home. And we know that all that stuff is happening right now. I have 2 dogs that you might hear barking in the background. And before that was absolutely, a no-no. And now it's, I can't help it, right? I'm working from home and you might hear some things in my household. And so showing employees grace and understanding that people are doing the best they can are definitely things that we as employers and managers need to remind ourselves as we are struggling with the same things. One of the main things is providing employees the tools they need to work from home. Trust your employees. It's trust but verify, I always say. And then manage by results or achievements or projects. What are they delivering? So some people may be working odd hours because they have to monitor their children while they're on remote school. These are all things that we need to take into consideration right now. And as this continues on, it gets more challenging. Things change every day. Things are constantly fluid. Some students are in school, some aren't. There are people who are very isolated, those that are having trouble with their families. So we're going through these things. Our employees are going through these things and showing people a little bit of grace. So we need, as managers and employers, we just need to remind ourselves as well, we have a business to run. That's 100% true. But also, are we providing our employees the flexibility and the tools they need to do their job? And are we managing them in a different way?
I love that, Kristin. I love the idea of really focusing on results and achievements. And probably, don't you think it's going to change the face of the way managers manage in the future, even when we're back to semi-normal? Do you think?
I would hope so. I mean, we're going to have a whole new set of challenges as things open up, with employees not wanting to return to the workplace or wanting more flexibility. And this is sometimes a new muscle for managers, and they need to learn. We're not perfect. We're constantly learning every day. So as we continue to move on and get this virus under control, how we integrate people back into the workplace, how we work with our employees who maybe want more flexibility, those are all going to be challenges we as employers will have. Another thing I wanted to mention is my colleague, Michelle Hansen, who actually is on the call as well, and I did, along with one of the attorneys at Clark Hill, a webinar on remote working considerations for the chamber last year. I can't remember exactly when it was. And for anybody who is a member of the chamber, that's available on the chamber's website. So I encourage you to go listen to that. And we gave a lot of different tips about managing employees and things that you should consider when you have people that are working remotely. And who knew that we'd be in mid-February with really no timeline when we're actually going back. We didn't know a year ago that we'd still be sitting here a year later.
Yeah, wow. Well, thank you, Kristin. So, Dr. Armstrong, I want to talk about national statistics reporting the increased stress levels that people are under in the workplace, at home. I certainly know from my own business, I have never had so many clients with such elevated anxiety and even moving into panic attacks. And so mental health, I think, is a big focus right now for so many people, and certainly needs to be a sensitivity for those of us that are managing employees. So what are some of your recommendations to help with this critical issue?
Great question. Thanks, Gail. Yes, the mental health is huge. We have this idea of fatigue, pandemic fatigue. And so we're trying so hard to stay isolated. But statistics are showing that loneliness is so impactful on our health negatively. It is equivalent to smoking 15 to 20 cigarettes a day. So that means almost a pack a day of cigarettes is the same impact, the same negative impact as being lonely. And so this isolation fatigue can be a big issue. So we really want to make sure that we are staying in communication with our employees, but not only employees, but also with your healthcare providers. And there was a study that was done that's called the Beautiful Mess Study, and I believe it was out of Stanford. And it was talking about how communicating with transparency and making sure that you're validating people's feelings can really improve communication and improve outcomes. And so communicating with employees like that, with transparency and validating them can be very helpful, but also with your healthcare provider. So making sure that you're being very transparent with how you're feeling, and if you are, and encouraging employees to do that as well. One of the advantages of naturopathic medicine is that we spend an hour with our patients, and we have a full hour to really establish that communication and to really understand where patients are coming from. And often we'll go into a medical visit, and the doctor will say, how are you feeling? And our immediate response is, oh, I'm feeling fine. Same with when we're talking to employees, how are you feeling? And they'll say, oh, I'm feeling fine. But when we're actually digging deeper, we'll say, well, actually, I'm feeling very isolated and very alone, and my mental health has decreased during this whole time of quarantining, because we are so isolated. And so some things that we can really do to help to combat that is having outlets and really paying attention to what brings us joy and what can we do while we're in isolation. So really looking at exercise and making sure that we are keeping up with our diet, and then stress reduction in general can be really helpful. And you are an expert in that, Gail, and maybe you could speak a little bit more about that, about health guided, but I will often send patients to get guided imagery to help with sleep or anxiety or panic attacks. And so if you could maybe elaborate a little bit more on that, but that's definitely a great avenue to help to manage stress, and then keeping the communication open between healthcare providers and socially, using things like Zoom and that kind of thing, those platforms.
Well, thanks, Hallie. Just very quickly, so I actually do guided meditation recordings for patients, whether ready-made or private. Really what it is, many people will say to me, Gail, I'm a mess, teach me to meditate. Well, meditation is the absence of thought for a period of time, and it is a wonderful pursuit. And I know that Dr. Armstrong, you recommend patients learning to meditate, but what really guided meditation is someone's soft voice on a recording, almost putting you into a meditative state where positive suggestions can be given to you. So the opposite of what you're feeling. So if you're feeling stress, then the suggestions are about peace and calm, and that you're secure, and that you're healthy and you're okay. So it's, thank you, Hallie, for mentioning that. But it's sort of a simple technique that people can use, anyone can use, with almost very few contraindications to help them. But I loved what you talked about communication. And it is shocking about the pack of cigarettes a day, equating to loneliness. It makes my heart, really go out to neighbors that I know that are alone, or people that are in, senior living facilities, but also, people that you might not think are really feeling depressed and lonely. And Kristin, I also know that communication, I mean, just from reading your bio, is a huge part of your expertise in helping companies deal with their employees. What else would you say about this whole really important area? And then if you could maybe tie in what you're recommending for your business's employee assistance programs, or unique things that you might be seeing in wellness programs of corporations that you interact with.
Sure, thank you. Communication is key, and I think we all know that. And Dr. Armstrong mentioned this, is, how are you doing? And we usually say fine, or how are you today? I'm good. That's how we're conditioned to respond most of the time. And I realized at the beginning of the pandemic, we were giving guidance to employers to say, reach out to your employees and ask them how they're doing. And a lot of times we get feedback back to say, well, everyone says they're fine. This is an opportunity, I think, for all employers and managers, although we don't want to get too involved in employees' personal lives, depending on the relationship, but to listen to hear what someone's saying versus listen to respond. I'm working on that myself, right? But also to really, no one's going to give you information about how they're really feeling unless they feel comfortable and confident and they trust you. And it takes a while to build that relationship. So for example, if I live alone and I'm really feeling isolated and I see myself really slipping into some sort of depression, if I don't have a good relationship with my boss, that's the last thing I'm going to tell him. Right? I'm just not going to, because I'm not comfortable doing that. If we don't have that kind of relationship, sometimes we as leaders need to share our vulnerabilities if we're comfortable. So the more I'm vulnerable to my employees, the more hopefully comfortable they would feel about getting into a discussion. So if I have an employee and I say, who lives alone, and I say, I live alone and it's really getting to me and I'm really struggling. And here are some of the things that I'm trying to do to combat that, we can get into a productive dialogue. All of our situations are different, but we as employers, even though we can't see people, physically, we need to be aware of different patterns of behavior that we might see, such as not going on Zoom calls, not being on the video. That's a big one, right? I mean, I could say I'm on Zoom fatigue, right? We're on video all day long. The phone call does not exist anymore. Everything is via Zoom. And, sometimes you just don't want to be on video, but there are those that are not all the time or have stopped participating. So look at patterns of your employees, of their participation, on video. Are they communicating in regular patterns? And then watch our own behavior. What are we doing differently for our employees? But the key is really to listen and hear. Don't listen just to respond. And understand that you have to have a good trusting relationship with your employees before they're really going to open up to you. Because as humans, right, we're invincible. We don't want to admit our faults. And especially with everything going on with mental health right now with the pandemic, and as this continues to go on and on and on, those people who felt they were really strong at the beginning, it's starting to wear on all of us. As for employers, what we can do, I love my clients. I work with clients in all different industries, and I learn a lot from them, and we work together on different things. If you don't have an EAP, an employee assistance program, that's something that I definitely would say look into. That's something that right now I think could be very helpful. In the past, employee assistance programs weren't as utilized. They were very underutilized. And I think they still are, although utilization is going up. But It's a resource where employees can talk confidentially and get some help that they need and some other resources for whatever challenge that they're working on. Create some fun things for your employees to do. For example, I have a client, and I deal this all the time. They do therapy Thursdays, and it's once a month, and they'll bring in a yoga instructor and do yoga via video. They will do different activities. They brought in a comedian one time. They have done, I think it was painting with a twist, right? And they brought in and they had an instructor on video, and they all did the paintings. And they call that Therapy Thursday. And it's not necessarily therapy, it's just an opportunity to get together and do something other than work. But providing opportunities for people to interact other than work is really helpful. I know it's helpful for me with my colleagues. We get together quite often, but it also gives you an opportunity to see a little bit into the lives of your employees. That's one thing that COVID and all of this has really done for us is you only see what I want you to see of me, right? What I present to you every day, what we present to our employees. On any given day, you're going to see dogs running in and out. You're going to hear noises. You hear what people deal with on a daily basis. And so there isn't a one size fits all. You're not going to have everyone participate, and some won't want to. But providing opportunities to get together like we used to in a voluntary, non-formal, something fun type of way, gets people's minds off of their daily challenges that they have to do. So there are lots of different things that our clients have done and we've done with clients, and more than happy to share that with people if they like.
Kristin, I love the practical suggestions you had, but especially about the manager or the owner of the business being maybe a little more vulnerable themselves. And Dr. Armstrong, I know that because I have been a patient of yours, I know that you also have a lot of training and a gift when you see a patient of really sort of developing this therapeutic relationship, which I feel those skills are a lot like what Kristin was talking about. Is there anything else you'd want to comment on about, how that manager, that owner, any other suggestions about trying to sort of create the safe environment so the employee feels comfortable talking?
Absolutely. So great asking questions, right? And allowing it, just like you were saying, Kristin, allowing yourself to be a bit vulnerable if you feel comfortable with sharing with the patient a little bit about what's going on in your personal life. They're more likely to share a little bit more with you. There was also a study done with physicians that the more likely that the physician was doing healthy habits in their own life, the more compliant their patients were. And I can't help but think that that would be the same with a manager or an owner in a business, that if you're modeling the behavior, that the healthy behaviors, getting the proper amount of sleep and getting the proper nutrition and really taking care of your mental health, participating in the Therapy Thursdays or however gets you through this time, can be, if you're modeling that, employees will often follow. And same as physicians. If physicians are eating better, they'll find that patients are actually adopting a healthier diet. So really modeling that behavior and practicing self-care yourself, because it really shows employees and patients that you put self-care first. It's just like parenting as well, right? When the parents do as I say, not as I do, but if we do, the children will model our behavior rather than doing what we tell them to do. So as much as you can put self-care first as a leader, that I think you're going to find great benefits with your employees as well.
Well, thank you. And I remember, Hallie, once you told me that self-care is not selfish. And
Yes.
I love that, because I think
Yes.
a lot of us believe, well, no, I I can't, it's conceded, for me to be doing self-care, but you can't serve if you have an empty vessel. I think you told me that too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have this Ariana Huffington from the Huffington Post always talks about, has a great TED talk that we use busyness and lack of sleep as we wear it kind of as a badge of honor in our society, that, I've been at this meeting and this meeting, and I've already gotten a workout in, and I've done so much in my day, that we act like that is really something to be very proud of, which in some aspects it is, but we are not paying attention to our own self-care and our self-love. And so making sure that you're really focusing on that can be very helpful for the entire organization.
And if I could just jump in, one of the things that we talked about, I talked about with Dr. Armstrong and Gail earlier when we spoke, was, I don't know about everyone because everyone's schedule is different, but there are days where I will be booked solid from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, no break for lunch, no break to go to the bathroom. I'm sitting in this chair and it's one after the other. Part of it's my fault. Part of that is somebody sees a little opening and they grab it. And one of the things to be mindful of, especially with COVID, if you have schedules like that and every business is different, is try, and this is something I'm going to do, but I've been trying to do, is try scheduling 45 minutes meetings versus an hour. If you go over 5 or 10 minutes, that's fine, but you're at least giving somebody the opportunity to stand up and stretch, or run to the restroom, or get a glass of water without feeling like they can't, because they are going to ruin the flow of the meeting. One of my colleagues yesterday, we both have Fitbits, and we're on a little challenge with each other. And she sent me a screenshot of her Fitbit last night, and she had 2,117 steps at 8:30 at night. And she said, "How is this possible?" And I just went, "Oh my gosh." It was, it just shows how much she was just sitting all day. I know Joe just chatted, sitting is the new smoking, and it is.
Absolutely.
Right. When I used to have phone calls, I would walk around my house if I were working remotely, but now I'm sitting in a chair. So,
Yeah.
Making sure we're mindful of not only ourselves, but our employees and anybody that we speak with, that we try to do something a little bit different to give people a little breathing room, or get a quick workout, or whatever it may be that they need to do, so they're refreshed.
Great point. I wanted to mention Danielle Workman, who is a longtime beloved chamber member, just sent a comment. She said, "Snail mailing and a small token gift has been a big win for us. I sent all my healthcare clients a hand care kit because I know excessive hand washing and sanitizer can leave them raw. It cost me under $20, but they were so thrilled." That's a wonderful thing, Danielle. Not surprised that you would come up with something so thoughtful. But talking about this whole idea of sitting and not walking, Dr. Armstrong, I'd like to sort of switch to talk then about this whole physical well-being. We've done quite a bit of talk about stress reduction on the mind. But many people are also, their desk is their kitchen table, and they could literally reach the refrigerator without even standing up. We're not parking cars and walking into our offices. We're not going up and down stairs. Help guide us on sort of the physical things we could be doing physically. And then if you talk a little bit about insomnia, because I know just personally in my own practice that there a lot of people are having great difficulty sleeping. So maybe if you could touch on that too.
Absolutely. So in terms of as you were saying, Joe, of the sitting is the new smoking, even practicing just standing, doing a standing desk is engaging. It's allowing your brain to really focus that that your body is there, and it makes your brain engage a little bit more. So even doing something simple such as doing a standing desk, that can make a huge difference with your overall physical health. Investing in one of those, there's little bicycle pedaling that you can do at your desk, underneath your desk, to get moving. That can be very helpful as well. And then, like you were saying, Gail, that the refrigerator is right there. And so really being mindful of why you are eating. Are you eating because you are fulfilling some other emotion other than hunger? And, are you, again, lonely or bored? And coming up with activities or something to do instead of grabbing for the food right away, in advance before you get to that point. The other big thing with unmindfully eating is making sure that you're hydrated, really aiming for half of your body weight in ounces of water per day can make a huge difference in your hunger and how satisfied you are, and with what you do eat. And it can really help with supporting things like joint pain from sitting too much, or brain fog, or headaches. So really making sure that you're hydrated every day. If it's too much to aim for half your body weight in ounces per day, look at your urine. If your urine is clear to very, very light yellow, then you're getting enough water. But if it's darker, you're not getting enough water. So really making sure that hydration is up there can make a big difference. And then in terms of sleep, if you're having trouble falling asleep, pay attention to the environment in your room. It could be an issue with melatonin. There was a study done. Melatonin is your sleep hormone. And there was a study done that people were exposed to light with just one flashlight. They had eye masks on, but a flashlight was put on the side of their leg, and their melatonin production was disrupted just by that little bit of light. So paying attention to the environment of your room, and making sure it's a dark room and a little bit cooler, which shouldn't be an issue right now since such cold temperatures. And then having 3 really deep diaphragmatic breaths before you go to sleep can really help to boost your melatonin levels. Now, if you're having trouble staying asleep, it could be a cortisol issue. Cortisol is your stress hormone, and that is, if you're waking up between 1 and 3 in the morning and can't go back to sleep, that isn't always a melatonin issue. That can be more of a blood sugar or a stress issue. So having a snack with protein in it, like a hard-boiled egg or some nut butter right before bed, that can make a big difference to help to keep you asleep, if you're having trouble staying asleep. So trouble falling asleep could be an issue with melatonin. And taking deep breaths and sleeping in a dark room, doing guided imagery before bed can make a big difference with increasing your melatonin levels. But trouble staying asleep could be an issue, like I said, with cortisol. So eating a high protein snack before bed can make a big difference too. And then getting the exercise can make a big difference.
So Dr. Armstrong, I know that this is probably going to be a question. I'm going to ask it before anyone
Yeah.
chats it. As a naturopathic doctor, I know that you're an expert on supplements and herbs. And really more importantly to medicine, the combination of traditional medicine, right? Pharmaceuticals. Yep. And herbs and supplements. And you talked about cortisol and insomnia and melatonin. Could you just maybe talk briefly about supplementation during this stressful time?
Absolutely. So making sure, so if you don't think of anything else, if you don't remember anything else that I say, just because something is natural does not mean it's safe. So be really careful with what you're putting in your body. If you're taking any kind of supplements, just be very careful. Make sure you're checking with your physician. Make sure you're checking with a qualified healthcare provider, not just a health food store clerk, which they are very well meaning, but sometimes don't have all of the information that we need. But melatonin is a specific supplement that many people will use before bed. It's a great antioxidant, and it can help to get you to sleep. And there has been some studies that show that it can be supportive for your immune system as well. The issue is a lot of the supplements are very high dose. And so you can start with even a half of a milligram or a quarter of a milligram of melatonin, if you, after you've checked with your physician to make sure that that's okay with your physiology. The other thing is I would recommend making sure that you're getting your vitamin D checked. Your vitamin D is the sunshine vitamin, and in Michigan, most of us are not getting enough vitamin D. So we want your vitamin D levels to be around 30 to 40. So that can make a big difference in supporting your mood and your overall sleep and immune health as well. And then a B complex, we get B vitamins from meat and animal products. But if you're not eating animal products, you want to make sure that B12 is a good one to get checked as well. It's a simple blood test. But a good B complex can be really helpful to help to support stress levels. It can help to support sleep. It can help to support mood and your overall well-being. So really making sure vitamin D is in a good place, vitamin B12 is in a good place, and then really making sure that you're following up regularly with your physician to get those regular blood checks so that we know where your levels are and where you stand.
Super, thank you. Kristin, anything else? You've mentioned some things that you can do to help yourself physically. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about that?
I think outside of the medical side, from an employer standpoint, I mentioned, little contests. I mean, it's little things. We don't have to have big things, but whether it's a little contest for your team with a little prize at the end, if you have Fitbits, who gets the most steps in a day, try to create. I'm a very competitive person when it comes to those things, so I love them. Some people aren't, but I always say a little competition can help drive results both in the workplace as well as personally. And so, there are lots of different apps and programs that are out there that are free. Some are you do pay for, where you can get your team or your folks all involved, or those that want to be involved. And whether it's steps a day or active minutes a day, or just what exercise are you getting in a day, something like that to just promote moving. And I know I'm guilty of it too. I mean, I sit and I've got to say, okay, I've got to move. I've got to get up. And that does, even not being a medical, not being in the medical field, I do personally, and I know there are all the things that I should do and I'm not doing, and I'm learning so much from the doctors of, I need to practice what I preach, right? I can't just say, hey, you need to get up, schedule 45-minute meetings, have the therapy Thursdays, do all of these different things. There isn't a one size fits all, but we have to practice what we preach to. And, make sure that we're modeling the behavior that we want. And it's for our own health. It's for our own physical and mental health as well.
Super. Well, I also know that you have dogs, and it suddenly dawned on me that in a way that is great for physical health. You've got your dogs, you've got to get them out, you've got to walk them, and really, in addition to that, they're almost therapy for those of us that have animals. I think they've been a great physical and emotional support during sort of being locked in.
Yeah, we've all survived so far, so that's a plus.
Yeah, I was hoping your door would be open and we'd see them in the hallway like we did on the last call.
I actually have a little thing underneath it so they couldn't barge in. The door doesn't click, so I can close it, but they'll walk right in.
Well, Kristin, before I met you, I started to research a little bit to know what HR Advantage Advisory does. And I was really impressed that it's an organization that literally can handle and help huge companies, but also, I mean, you also would be very attractive to a small organization. And I was wondering if you could sort of tell us a little bit about that. Because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people on the call, but as well as listening to this on a recording that don't have any internal HR support.
Sure. Yeah. So I joined HR Advantage Advisory about 4 years ago. We've been in existence for, well, I guess about 3.5 years ago. We've been in existence for 4 years. And we are a subsidiary of Clark Hill, which is a law firm that's affiliated with the chamber as we are as well. And it was an opportunity for Clark Hill to provide another service to especially small and medium-sized businesses that maybe use attorneys for general, HR questions, or the attorneys found that there was another need that their clients had, and that we could deliver at a lower price point with great expertise. And so our organization was founded. I was employee number 2. We're now up to 8, and so we're excited about that. And really, our goal is to provide small and medium-sized businesses with HR support to help them in any capacity that they need, whether it be we call it a fully outsourced engagement, meaning we're your HR department, right? I mean, let's think about COVID, right? That I think a lot of people realize the importance of really what HR does, because a lot of people say, oh, I don't really know what HR does, or I have somebody do that. And we found that when COVID hit, and there were all the legislations that came out and the rules and the preparedness plans and great resources that came from the chamber. But now, how do we do this? How do we do this for our workplace? And that's where we would come in and say, okay, not only do we have the expertise from the attorneys who are interpreting what needs to be done, but we also are the realists because we've worked in the workplace and we understand, how do we implement certain things in the workplace. So we provide everything from a fully outsourced service, or what we call, it's not necessarily the professional name of it, but I call it phone a friend, right? So it's like, sometimes you just have a question that you want some expertise on, and you don't really need an HR outsourcing engagement, but you just say, I need somebody that I want to call from time to time to be able to answer questions. We do that for a lot of our clients as well. And then we do everything else from, administrative processes to project work, training, coaching, facilitation, strategic planning, so on and so forth. So with the staff that we have built over the past four years, we have practical experience, right? We're all former practitioners across the entire employee life cycle. And so that's been one of the beauties of working with the team that I work with, where if I'm not sure about a certain answer, or if I have a question, or I'm not clear about a certain piece of compliance, there's somebody I can call who I know knows the answers. So we do have an agreement and a partnership with the chamber, and we do have a phone number which we'll get out to everyone that is set up for chamber members. If you want to reach out to us, or you have questions, or interested in any kind of services. So I don't want to pitch my services, but that's what we do. And we've been a member of the chamber for a couple of years. My colleague Michelle and I did a in-person session. I think it was it last year, beginning of last year before COVID, on interviewing. And so we love doing that. We love partnering with the chamber and sharing our knowledge. And we're at that point in our career where our job is to really share what we know with others, as well as those, earlier in their career.
Thank you, Kristin. And as a chamber member myself, I really appreciate this particular resource. And Dr. Armstrong, I'd like you, if you could, just to sort of explain, how does somebody find you? And, a naturopathic doctor, some people are somewhat confused. What might they expect if someone reached out to you for an appointment? So how do they find you, and sort of briefly, what do you do with them once you get them?
Sure. So I'm at Beaumont Integrative Medicine. I'm across the street from the Troy Hospital. And to find me, you can just call the Integrative Medicine number. You can just Google from naturopathic doctor or integrative medicine at Beaumont, but we'll send out information as well in terms of phone numbers. But in terms of who would use a naturopath or what we do, I am the general practitioner of natural medicine, basically. So we're trained as primary care physicians. We do 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of naturopathic college, and we assess everything that goes into your body, how it comes out in the environment around you. Now, even though we're trained as primary care physicians, we don't act as primary care physicians in Michigan. The issue, which is a little bit confusing for everyone, is there is no license currently to get in Michigan for a naturopathic doctor. So anyone can call themselves a naturopathic doctor currently, and they can go to a weekend course, or they can go to the 8 years of schooling that I just talked about. And so really looking for if any of your employees or you are looking for any kind of natural medicine, so herbs or supplements or treating conditions with diet, making sure that you're going to a qualified naturopathic doctor. So that means that we have passed a North American wide board exam called NPLEX, and asking the physician if they've passed NPLEX. If they have, that is kind of a way to determine if they've gone to the proper schooling or not. So we treat patients that we treat three kinds of patients. The first one is they want to prevent things from going on. They want to preserve their health. They're very healthy, but they want to know what to do to stay as healthy as possible. So we'll do further blood testing and a little bit more in depth and looking at your health. We also have patients that are they are on a list of medications, but they also want to help to adjunct their care. So they want to help to support their care with typical medical medications and prescription drugs, but they also want to add in natural supplements to maybe decrease the dose of how many prescriptions they have to take, or how much of the medicine that they have to take. And then we also will treat people who have been through the medical model, the traditional medical model, but not having results. And so we're kind of people's last resort. So all three of those types of cases, we can definitely help to support. We see a lot of support for hormones like menopause or issues with menstruation or PMS. We see a ton of digestive issues. We work really well for people who have any kind of digestive issues like constipation or diarrhea or IBS. And we see a lot of patients that all of their blood work is normal and everything is coming back normal that we're seeing with their physician, their medical doctors, but they still aren't feeling 100%. We're there to kind of dig deeper to really figure out what's the cause of what's going on or what your symptoms are when the typical medical model can't get to that. It's not, you can't get to that specific reason why you're not feeling 100%. So that's a little bit about what we treat. When people come in to see us, we meet, like I said, for about an hour, and we assess everything that's, again, like I said, going into your body, how it's coming out in the environment around you. And we give a lot of homework. So we'll give patients, diet advice or movement or exercise. We work a lot with emotions, and then a lot with herbs or nutraceuticals or nutrient supplements to really help to optimize health.
So Dr. Armstrong, we have a comment regarding herbs and supplements that I'll mention, but what do you recommend when somebody comes to you? And I've witnessed it where people come in with garbage bags full of their herb supplements, as well as, a ton of traditional pharmaceuticals. How do you guide them?
Yeah, great question. So there's various ways that we can help to really streamline the supplements and the medications that are particularly for you. So we work with your medical doctor, and we can do blood tests to test for different nutrient levels. We can and see if you really, and we really ask patients to bring in their actual supplements, because a lot of times people are watching shows like Dr. Oz or Googling something, and things will come up and they'll say, oh, I must take this. I must take this supplement. I must take this supplement. And really they're ending up that they're taking toxic doses of something like vitamin A that you think is very safe. But that's why we have people bring in everything that they're taking, because even though something is for hair growth, and then another thing is for sleep, and then another thing is for digestion, there may be a lot of overlap of what the actual ingredients are. So we look at the actual supplements that you're taking and then determine which ones are the best for you. And then we look and make sure that the supplements that you're taking, if you are taking any, are really high quality. So they are coming from third-party testing companies, because the supplement industry, unfortunately, is a lot like the wild, wild west. There's very little regulation. So we want to make sure that you're getting the best quality of supplements if you do need any kind of natural supplements there.
Okay, thank you. And Danielle mentioned that she actually has a European compounding pharmacist in Berkeley, not within the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber network, but I believe it's called Almonds. And she's found that the pharmacist has greatly helped her with things like insomnia. And I'm sure supporting the same thing, that you're getting them from a very reputable source, somebody you trust.
That's wonderful. And really, again, making sure that you're working with a qualified healthcare provider, like a pharmacist, a naturopathic doc, primary care physician, just making sure that you're getting really quality information if you do decide to take any natural supplements is very important.
Super, thank you. So we have a question for Kristin. Kristin, do you believe a positive outcome of folks being forced to work remotely will be that managers will come to realize that they can actually trust their team members to be productive, even if they're out of sight? Great question.
Yeah, that is a great question. And I would hope so, right? As we mentioned earlier, it's a different muscle for managers. Some managers do this very well. Others need to build that muscle. What we find, and this is one of my, I'd say, pet peeves of human resources, is we cater to the 20%, right? 80% of our employees, good employees, follow the rules, get their work done, so on and so forth. There's 20% of the employees, and that's a rough number, it could be higher, lower, hopefully it's lower, that aren't really doing what they should be doing, right? They're pushing the limits on different things. You could be sick all the time, not delivering when they should, and coming up with excuses, all those sorts of things. And what we tend to do is focus on that 20% and build policies and procedures around that 20% that you can't trust, or aren't doing what they're doing, or are watching TV, or aren't really working. And so what that tells the rest of your employees, or telegraphs, is we don't trust you either, right? And so I would hope that, and I keep talking about it's a different way to manage, is by managing on results and focusing on what people are achieving, versus that I'm sitting in a chair from 8 to 5, as hours could be different. And the way that I'm working could be different. For those employees that, we might have a question or push the limit, yes, we're going to have to monitor them maybe a little bit more. But if I had a manager in my job who was, checking when I logged in, when I logged off, you can check everything now, right? When am I actually typing? When am I moving my mouse? And looking at those sorts of things, as a professional who does what she's supposed to do, I'm somewhat offended, right? So we don't want to offend our good employees. We want to promote our good employees, provide them the tools and resources they need, the freedom, the flexibility, and the support. but also we need to, deal with that 20%. And really that 20% takes up 80% of our time. And so that's just a management thing that we talk about is we develop policies, procedures, rules around the 20%, which then can impact the 80% in a negative way. So, to kind of wrap this up, I sure hope so. I sure hope that we get better at managing on results, trusting our employees, and working differently with our employees moving forward.
Kristin, another question sort of associated with that is it a lot more difficult for you as an HR expert to guide your managers on corrective action then? If someone's working from home and not performing, how does that work?
So we're focusing on what are they not doing, right? Versus I called them and they didn't answer and they should be working. Well, now we're on Zoom calls. My phone's rang 3 times since I got on the call and I didn't answer it. So it's always making assumptions about what somebody's not doing. And as humans, if we don't have all the information, we fill in the blanks with the worst case scenario. If I have an employee who I've had issues with in the past and I call them and they don't answer, I'm assuming they're goofing off. They're not doing their job. Whereas if I have an employee who's a great employee and they do their job well, and I call them and they don't answer, I assume they're busy. So we have to check our own biases as well and make sure that we're working with employees in a way that gives them the benefit of the doubt. But for corrective actions and counseling or discipline, it's been a little more difficult because really what we do as HR is try to pinpoint a manager on what are they not getting done? What are concrete examples? Because in fairness, I always say whenever we're counseling an employee, we want to make sure that we describe what we're observing. I call it DESC. So we describe the behavior or what they're doing, what we're observing, right? We explain and we go over what the impact of that is. And then we specify what we need to have them do in the future. And then we talk about the consequences if they don't. And it's a really simple formula, but it seems like, whenever I say that to people, they're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Because of our employees, when you're giving them any kind of counseling, it specifically tell them what they're doing, what the impact is, what your expectations are, and what the consequences are if they don't do it. It's not just that you're not meeting deadlines and that's not right. Well, when you don't meet your deadlines, here's the impact on the organization. Here's the impact to me. There's broader impacts to our behaviors and what we do. So it's been a little more challenging, but it's gotten so much better as we continue on in this journey. And that's something that we do a lot with our clients.
Oh, thank you. Well, both of you have given us such wise counsel on what I think is a really important topic for all of us on this call and the chamber members that are going to listen to this on a recording. I do want to remind everybody that next Wednesday, the talk is going to be focused on healthy eating and nutrition, what foods make us more energized and productive. And then that's the 17th. And then on the 24th is the joy of movement. And we're going to have the owner of Fred Astaire Dance Studio and the owner of Title Boxing. And I think that's going to be a fun one. I had the opportunity to talk to both owners, very vibrant, enthusiastic people, and really both in very different ways are moving your body in a fun and joyful kind of way. So again, thank you so much to Kristin and Dr. Hallie Armstrong and Chamber. Joe, anything else to talk about?
Sure. Well, thank you. Just on a personal note, Kristin, you'll appreciate this. Prior to my chamber life, I was a manager in corporate America, and there's a large corporation. And I remember we used to have these management training seminars where they would bring you all together and put you through some exercises and do's and don'ts. And I think I got some really horrible management training because the two recurring themes were, if you can't see them, you can't trust them. And no matter what, you check your personal life at the front door. And I'm glad to say that through the help of some great mentors, including Gail, I've become a more enlightened manager, and I realize now that those are probably the two worst bits of advice I ever received in management training. So even for old dogs like me, you can learn new ways and better ways. So thank you, Kristin, for all you do. And actually the Chamber has used Kristin's expertise in the past, and I can certainly vouch for the quality of their programming. So thank you, Kristin. Thank you, Dr. Armstrong, so much. Gail, thank you for moderating. We want to thank our sponsors, which are Beaumont Health and Health Guided. And hopefully we'll see you all next week. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.
Take care,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Be well.
You too.